Hi, I'm Father George, Episcopal Priest, Ford truck enthusiast, and smoke brisket champion. And today, Copper and I are going to be sharing with you our experience changing the Glowplug relay in our 1995 F-350 7.3 liter diesel pickup. It is a blustery 39 degrees here in southeast Texas. Honestly, I don't know how you folks who live in colder climates manage through the long winters. There's one thing that the plunging temperatures do besides just freeze your butt off. They highlight if you have a problem in your glow plug system in your diesel. If you're having difficulty starting the truck in cold temperatures and you're getting the telltale sign of a white puff of smoke when you do, that's a sure sign that there's a good chance that glow plugs or your glow plug relay need to be replaced. Now, I just replaced my glow plugs about 3 years ago. They have maybe 50, 60,000 miles on them. And so I don't expect the glow plugs to be the problem. But there are some things we can look for inside the truck to see if perhaps the problem is with the relay. So when things are working normally, within about a moment of moving the ignition switch to the on position, you should hear the glow plug relay pull in, and you can observe the needle on the voltmeter drop a little bit as the glow plugs are drawing current from the batteries. It draws the voltage down a little bit. So there, the relay has engaged. You saw the needle dip there from just inside the end to just below it. If there had been a meter on here, you would have noticed it was from like 12.5 volts, drops down to about 11 volts. And after we start the truck, you will notice that the voltmeter stays down there. So the glow plugs stay engaged for about a minute after they're originally energized. And the alternator of the truck, even though the truck is running, the alternator could just not keep up with the demand of the glow plugs, so they're drawing current from the batteries as well. That's why the voltage stays down. After the relay disengages, we'll notice the rise in voltage. So there, the relay has clicked back off, and you'll notice that the voltmeter is climbing slowly as the alternator is recharging the batteries, and within a moment we'll be back up to the 13.5, 14 volts normal charging voltage for the system. Let's see what it looks like when the relay is not working properly. So you notice when I turn the ignition on there, the needle barely drops as the relay is pulled in. The relay did pull in, I could hear it, but the voltage really didn't drop very much at all. That's an indicator that the glow plugs are not drawing the current that they normally should. Then when the light goes out, we'll start the truck, or try to start the truck. There is the white smoke that indicates an incomplete combustion is happening. And the truck's not starting in these cold temperatures. So again, needle didn't drop very much at all. I'm going to try to start the truck here again, and we'll see what happens. Big puff of smoke, and you see the needle rose up immediately. So alternator's charging the batteries. This is not expected behavior. The glow plug should be drawing it all down. You can see the erratic behavior in the needle. It's maybe indicating that the relay is perhaps chattering or intermittently engaging. There, it's pulled in quite a bit right there. So that's a pretty good indicator it's the relay. I think if the glow plugs were the problem, you wouldn't see that erratic behavior in the needle. So let's go take a look. So here is the replacement relay. You can see this one comes with the control coil for the relay pre-wired through this connector. If your truck has this connector, great, it's pretty simple. If not, you can just take those off and put the control wires in directly onto these terminal posts. You can actually buy this relay without this on it, but it's about the same price anyway. And then the relay and a bracket are held in place by a couple of bolts. So pretty simple job. We take the wires off of the terminal post from the old relay, remove the bolts that are holding it in place, replace the relay, put the wires back on, and plug back in the connector for the control coil, or wire it in, and we are done. This literally takes just a few minutes to do this job. So as always, when working inside the engine compartment, we want to remove the negative battery cables. This is especially important if you're going to be working on that glow plug relay. Don't short step this important safety measure. And while you're at it, maybe you can maintain the terminals a little bit. These are really corroded. Two birds, one stone. Next, we need to remove the cover. The Glowplug relay is just forward on the passenger side of the fuel filter underneath this cover. Take that off, and then let's see if we can move in there and find it. There's the filter to the right, and there is the relay. That's what we're going to be changing. So here is the relay that we're going to replace, and you can see that the heavy gauge wire coming into this terminal here is live at 12.5 volts, which is why it is so important while we're working in this area to have the negative battery cable removed. Even still, with the batteries disconnected, I'm going to treat this post and this wire with a fair amount of respect and do my best not to have any contact made between it and anything else in the engine compartment. So to remove this, these nuts here require a 13mm socket, and the ones holding the relay and this bracket in place are an 8mm socket. And remove the wires first. That's interesting. So it looks like the terminal post and the nut are spinning together, so something has broken loose in there. Try to put it in a bind and loosen it, I can't. And the terminal itself is wiggly, not like the other one, which is good and firm. This one is loose and wiggly. Something is definitely wrong there. We'll take the other one off and see what we can figure out here. As you remove these, the terminal has a small washer on it. You can be careful not to drop that down into the engine. And then we'll get this pulled back and see what it looks like. So, interestingly enough, this terminal was busted. It may have been my problem. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect. That. So now take the relay off, now that that's disconnected. All this is pretty easy to get to. Pull this back now and out of the way. So that loose terminal was probably the problem all along. It broke free when I was taking the nut loose to get the wire off, and you can see that metal plate in there is drawn up when the coil's energized. That plate is drawn up and it bridges a contact between the two terminal posts, and when this one was all loose, it just didn't make a good solid contact. Probably why it worked some of the time and then some of the time it didn't. You can also see there's a fair amount of corrosion on the plate there. This relay is only about 5 years old, but you can see it's got quite a bit of corrosion there. We were going to be due to change this relay pretty soon anyway. So here's the relay going back in place, the new relay. Just need to tighten down the bolts to hold those in, and the bracket is there. And once we get that snugged up in place, plug the connector back in for the control wires and wire the terminals back up. New relay comes with all the hardware you need to do that. Now that's all set, put the cover back in place, tighten it up, and of course replace the negative battery cables. And once that's done, give it a shot. So let's see how things worked out. Should work like it kind of did at the beginning of the video. There it is pulled in, you see the needle drop. I'll wait for the light to go out. There it goes. Starts right up. And the needle is staying down like it should, and in a minute it will climb back up to its normal charging voltage. So there, the relay disengaged and the voltage is climbing back up. Well, that is all there is to it. Hopefully you found this video helpful and useful. Until next time, I'm Father George, and Copper and I are bidding you all the blessings.